Katy Perry has a bouncy, upbeat pop tune called Teenage Dream. The video, too, is one filled with joy and happiness and teenagers driving to the beach, laughing and having a good time. And the young girl declares to her boyfriend, what we have is real. All of our Valentines throughout the rest of our lives, all of our Februaries will be shared in love and joy and happiness. We're going to be young forever. We're never going to look back. And therefore, let's go to a cheap hotel room tonight and have sex. They don't use that exact lyric, but that's the message that's given. Unfortunately, this is a dream for many teenagers that more often than not is the first chapter of something nightmarish. First of all, most teenagers who are sexually active think that their chances of catching a sexually transmitted disease are like 1 in 1,000. Unfortunately, it's 1 in 4. Most teenagers that think they are in love are really deeply infatuated with another human being. Their brains are filled with phenylethylamine and dopamine, so they can't think clearly. That's the glory of being in love at that level. But it impairs the judgment. And acting on those impulses in that state usually leads to heartbreak, sorrow, bitterness, and a hardness of heart. And as far as never looking back goes, well, people look back on their adolescence and agonize over it one way or another. Now, all of us can remember our teenage years. And I sympathize with the notion of wanting to stay young forever. I can remember my buddies and I talking and deciding that if we could magically do it, we would freeze our age at age 16 and never grow up. Why 16? Because then we'd have our driver's license and be able to drive off to the beach and have fun. A beach like this. Actually, this is the beach we actually did come to have fun. But it didn't work out for us. We were afraid of graduating, of going to the military or the mills, having to take on responsibilities. We wanted to freeze our life and stay young forever at age 16 and drive around in convertibles laughing and having a good time. Didn't work out, did it? Just take a look at me. And this notion of never looking back. Well, for those teenagers who are sexually active, many of them will have to look back on their lives and say, what did I do and what was I thinking? If you contract herpes at age 15, unless there is a medical breakthrough, which I pray there will be, you'll have it at 50. If you get genital warts at age 16, you're going to have them at age 60. And perhaps you will have passed it on to how many other people? Now, that's just the physical consequences of acting on impulses. The emotional can even be more devastating. A girl thinks a guy loves her. She's romantically involved, has this vision of a whole future, and unfortunately, the guy might simply want to have sex. I hung out in locker rooms all the way up into my middle years because I always participated in sports. And I know what both boys and men talk about. And it's not romance. Then there is this notion of unintended pregnancies. I always tell a young woman, are you ready to have a child right here and now and to raise it for the next 18 or 20 years on your own? Can you do that financially, emotionally, or spiritually? Some would say, well, Father, I could always get an abortion. Are you willing to live with that for the rest of your life? I've talked to so many heartbroken women who, maybe 10 years after the abortion, see a child in a park that happens to look like them, and they burst out in tears thinking, that could have been my child. Or another woman that might hear a very innocuous tune that drives her into depression because that happened to be the tune being played in the abortion clinic the day she went. Some women, 9 months after the abortion, wake up hearing a baby crying in the next room, and there isn't any baby there. Abortion is not to be taken lightly. One life is lost and the other is deeply wounded. So this notion of teenagers saying, what we have is real, so let's have sex together, is very, very dangerous. And finally, it disrupts the human soul, our capacity to love one another in a real sense and to love the God of love, who gives us the commandments not to limit our happiness or our fun, but to give us a chance of having a truly holy and loving life. I pray that all of your friends will be sensible and that you'll be wiser than your peers and wiser than your years. And you can only do that by following the plan that God has for you. And if you do that, you won't go far wrong in your life. And although life itself will not be an unending beach, your life could have a profound happiness, and you could find in your life love that truly will not end.